Hello and welcome. It's me, Reverend Arlene, and welcome to another episode of the Sacred Pearl podcast. This is very kind of just wasn't really scheduled or fully prepared, let's say. I just had the energy, the vibe of, okay, we got to make the video. Um, so, and yeah, I'm still sort of, it's a slow morning. Yesterday was my oldest son's birthday. So, it was just a really busy day. So I'm slow moving today. I'm just taking time to just be and be stillness and presence, um, enjoying my cup of coffee. And here we are. So I'm still kind of just, yeah, not presentable really, I guess. But as those of you who know me, kind of what you see is what you get. Um, I'm not, all savvy with technology and stuff like that. And doing all the editings and doing all that stuff, it's just kind of like you get what you get, and let's hope it works. Because to me, it's about being genuine, right, and authentic, and who I am, and what my life is like, and my life is sometimes organized chaos. Is kind of the way I best describe it. Um, but yeah, so there's been a lot that's been happening, and I've been wanting to, once I had the strength again to be able to bring forward a video, uh, this is what I wanted to do. And sorry, now I'm getting warm. The, it's the fun of going through perimenopause, being almost 49 years old. So, okay. Yeah. So there's been a lot happening personally for me, and I wanted to share, you know, parts of it because I feel that, like I said, transparency is so important for me in how I show up for those who follow me on, social media, and of course here on YouTube, which is also social media, and, clients that come to see me, and, the classes I put out there, and all these things, right? It's that transparency is so important, I feel. Um, Especially because, this is not a judgment, it's just an observation, but how uh, how it makes, how it, I don't know if it makes me feel, but just like the energy vibe that I get, right? So it's like, if I'm only going to show you, I guess, and I don't even like the word, the best version of myself, because they're all versions of me. And it's all about, for me, it's about learning to integrate them all and love them all, and support them all, and have that grace and um and accept, like, just, and then compassion for me as all these different things rise to the surface, right? Like, it's not rainbows and unicorns, right? Like, every part of it, and every part of it is just as important. And that's why too, like, to me, it's never been that whole love and light. Like, yes, there's aspects of love and light, but, and I don't even like calling it the shadow either, because it's not a positive and a negative, right? It's just these different polarities, right? And it's like, I always love, like, my best, like, I always love that, like, uh saying, in a way, to kind of help understand, where it's like, it's one coin, and it's the heads and the tails of the one coin, right? So it's still the same coin, right? But it's just different polarities of it. So so that's how I feel about this human experience. It's not really about negative and positive. It's understanding that these are aspects of being human. And there's going to be days and months, maybe, where you are not going to be happy or comfortable, and it's just not going to make you feel great in how you're feeling, or whatever it is you're experiencing, whether it be a physical or an emotional, a mental, a spiritual. It's all that. So what was already happening before? So it was a middle of 2025. So it was already kind of like hitting into fall of 2025 here in Ontario. And Ontario, Canada, because, I'm sure there's other, Ontarios in a way, but I'm talking about Ontario, Canada. Um, and, I was already, like, my body was kind of already, I guess, overwhelmed in a way. Like, I was taking on a lot between clients and my volunteer work at, hospital and the hospice and stuff like that. So, um, and plus too, like, as many of you who have been following me now for a while know, I have two boys on the autism spectrum and they have other stuff. So, even though it was, it's been change and growth for all of us, and, and these new evolutions for them and growth where, my oldest, you know, because of where he is on the spectrum is always a little bit different. So he needed the 7 years to complete high school. So he completed high school in June of 2025. My youngest, again, like, so he had already graduated in June of 2024, but he went back to complete a few courses that he needed in 2025. And then things jumped, kind of compared to what we first thought he was going to do. And then here we were applying universities for him to start in September of 2025. So it was kind of a whirlwind. So I think it was just all of that, right? And then doing these new things through my ministry, and being in these volunteer positions of, with the health industry in that aspect, right? The conventional kind of health industry. I just think it was a lot that I wasn't prepared for, and that my body was struggling to integrate and flow with. So it basically, the best way I can describe it is I burnt out. Like, basically, it was New Year's Eve afternoon. I was supposed to have some family over. We don't really do anything too huge. It's just, we have some food and, junk food, and we play some games, watch some movies, whatever, right? It wasn't supposed to be anything crazy. But just, us together. And, I was trying to, well, do things like set up the house and, do things here in my place. And then I was supposed to, start getting food prepared, and my mom was going to get other food prepared. And then I was supposed to pick them up, but I was so, like, exhausted, tired, and, it was affecting me physically. And my boys were just like, Mom, maybe you should cancel, like, like, your health is more important. But I didn't want to disappoint people, and, I just felt bad, blah, blah, blah. Because part of me, I wanted to do it, but physically I just couldn't. So I had to make the really tough decision and cancel. And then once I basically said, like, yeah, like, it wasn't going to happen, like, I literally collapsed on the ground. I was just so, like, I couldn't. And basically, I have spent the last few months um, mostly in bed. Like, uh, I went to see the doctor too because, I'm don't just always jump right away to, like, oh my gosh, it has to be something spiritual. Like, I know there's a lot of it intended to, there's a lot of metaphysical like aspects to it. And I don't discard it, but at the same time, I still feel like, for me at least, it's about complementing each other, right? So there's always a place for the two types of medicines. At least that's how I see it, and how I live my life. So, I still booked, when I finally could get out of bed and could stand long enough to feel comfortable and safe to drive and all that stuff. I went to see the doctor, got blood work done, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, so showing a few different, like, vitamin deficiencies in certain places according to my blood work. So I've been, doing that. Sadly, for the last couple months too, like, I haven't been able to see any clients. I haven't been able to do a lot of things. I even had to I had to give up Tai Chi, which was something that I was loving, that I had started to do in September, and yeah, like it was just needing to surrender to it all. And that's what it was. Like I realized too, like being raised the way I have been raised, right? Like like I say in many ways, I'm raised European, and it's kind of like, if you have time to sit, then you're just not doing enough, right? Kind of thing. And even though I know that's not accurate, but there is always that part of me that is like that little voice that's like, oh, you're being lazy, oh, so even though I do have that battle still of fighting those old voices and knowing that it's about presence, but always, right? Like when you're in this work, it doesn't stop. You're always in the work, right? You're constantly living from a space and a world and a life of consciousness, right? And needing to, kind of check in and be like, okay, is this true? You know, is this fact? And stuff like that. So it is a work in progress. And that's kind of like what I really wanted to share with this too, where it's like I needed to, and I knew, even though it was so uncomfortable, and it's still uncomfortable to the fact that, yes, there's lots that I still can't do that I was doing before. And it's interesting because, it's almost like I can always hear my guides, like my higher self team and God, like saying to me, so how many years ago did we start you off with frozen shoulder on your right side? And then we transferred over to your left side, and you still weren't listening to us. You were still trying to, do everything, and you weren't giving yourself enough like compassion and grace, and you weren't listening to your body and listening, not even just listening to your body, you weren't listening to your spirit, you weren't listening to your own needs. And it's like, or like you would only listen to a part of your needs, but you still kept putting everything else ahead of you, right? And it's like it's always back to that same analogy of like, on the airplane, right? You need to put your mask on first so that you can help others, right? Instead of trying to help others first and then put on your mask. I get the analogy, and yes, it makes sense. But at the same time, when you're living it, sometimes it's difficult to remind yourself of those things, or you always think, well, maybe I can give a little bit more. I can just do a little bit more of this. So yeah, so finally, I want to say I'm finally listening, and I was going through this part too, where sometimes I think when you're in this work and you've been doing it for so long, right? Because I found that for me, it really hit the shift, and it's probably 2017 is when it really hit this shift. So it's been almost 10 years, right? Of it really shifting and changing in how I'm living my life and what the energies are showing me and sharing with me, and my connection with God, and how that's really amplified and changed and become so connected. So what I was finding was there's a few things. So it was, yes, needing rest. The biggest thing for me was learning to say no, not feeling guilty for saying no, not feeling like a bad person for saying no, not feeling like a failure for saying no. So that was a big thing for me. Also, listening to the even more subtle energies of um, like really paying attention, right? Because it's like, again, it was saying yes to things that I really didn't want to do, or I didn't feel called to do, or didn't, it wasn't resonating. Even my relationships with people and stuff too. So I'm finding that is hitting me stronger, where it's like different energies when people call or I talk to people or they're in my energy field, and really needing to honor that. And that's another hard one, right? Because when you're in this field of supporting others too, it's understanding how to kind of navigate yourself in that, where, you know, uh, there's certain people where for me, like, I can't just shut doors on. But it's also, and again, but that's my because this is all an individual journey for everyone. So that is my preference, right? Where for some people, maybe for them, it is about shutting those doors, and that works for them. And again, it's not a judgment, but I know for me, I don't want that to be my outcome, all right, or my story, where it's like, yes, to a degree, I've had to shut doors. Um, but I feel, or like you shut doors for a little bit of time and then slowly integrate these people back into your life if it needs to. Because again, when it comes to family, especially, it's always a little bit more difficult, right? To just say, psh, shutting that door on you. Um, so it's something that I'm learning more for me, right? And how to integrate that, or how to manage my time with certain individuals and just certain energies in certain places, right? And really paying attention to what my body is trying to tell me, right? Like it's trying to speak to me. And this is why I wanted to bring this video to you too, because I understand that, like, and I want you to know that I see you, right? And that you're being seen, and that you're not alone in this too, where you're going to have moments, right? And hopefully you're going to be a little bit more of a quicker study than I am. And you don't need the hard clue by four across the head that clearly I've been needing to get. And like my youngest son would say, Mom, you're a stubborn Portuguese woman, right? So it's like, I'm like, yes, I get that. Um, and it can be a good thing too sometimes. But anyways, so yeah, so for the last while, and it was really bad. And at least now I'm having a little bit more energy. I can do a little bit of things that I wasn't able to do before. And I'm slowly starting to integrate being able to see clients again and putting some classes together, so yeah, again, I'm slowly having that energy again. And I'm really focusing on what I'm allowing in, what I'm putting out. Um, and I just feel like that's so important for all of us in anything we're doing. And that it's like, again, the biggest thing is presence, being honest with ourselves, like brutally honest with ourselves. And it's not a comfortable feeling. Um, but slowly, and even when we are being that brutally honest with each other, it's with ourselves, it's not about judgment, it's not about criticism, it's just about like, look, like this is what was happening. And like going back to a point I was trying to make before, where sometimes when you're in this line of work, sometimes it can be not a detriment, but sometimes you can get wrapped and looped into this cycle of, overworking it. And that was something else where it's like I had to like I was understanding at one level that yes, something was coming to the surface, that this is a learning opportunity. This is a gift, right? I knew that this was happening because I was not honoring myself, right? And that's why my body was shutting down, because I wasn't honoring myself and I was overgiving, overdoing, and, trying to be Superwoman, Wonder Woman, right? Um, and trying to be a version of myself that doesn't exist anymore. And I need to learn to accept that, and that's a big thing for me too, is not seeing it as a failure, right? Or seeing it as if I'm going downwards. It's understanding that, and again, when I say this, I hope it doesn't come off as some kind of cocky overconfidence thing, but it is something that I've noticed and other people have said to me too. So I know that it's not just me making shit up in my head, right? Where it's like, just the energy I carry, where it's like every day, whether I'm seeing clients or not, I'm working, right? Like I work in my sleep. I'm constantly working and elevating the energies in a way. So I have to remind myself of that too, that when I'm, in my meditations, when I'm doing my prayers and different things, I'm still sending out, right? It's still this resonance of energy that's sending out. So that too can be exhausting, right? And basically, it's kind of exhausting just being me, right? um, whether because to me, this is like breathing. I don't really know any other way of being, um, right? And so it's understanding that where it's like, okay, it's about being present, right? So it's like I had to come to a point where I can't be focusing on trying to understand where I'm maybe not honoring myself. It's more of just letting it all go and not seeing it as like a task, right? And I needed to allow it just to rise to the surface and take it not even day by day. It was sometimes like hour by hour, right? Where that's how fluctuating it is and the ebbs and flows. It's like it's not linear as we already know. It's all over the place. I'm going in different spirals and yeah, it's crazy. Sometimes it can feel crazy. And so this is why too I'm bringing this forward to you so that you understand that yes, it's not going to be linear. It's going to be all over the place. You're going to feel like you're going in circles. Sometimes you're going to feel like you just, did a U-turn and came back around, right? And that is all normal. It is all part of it because in a way sometimes you do go back to finally come through and out, right? And that's kind of what's been happening. And I really needed to be super present, be just super aware. And again, just taking notes, right? And not over analyzing and letting it just come through and then listening for those little subtle pulls and tugs and where that was coming from. So yeah, so I wanted to share with you that this is what's been happening and this is why too I've been so quiet, because this is a lot of integration for me. I'm really integrating so much of the new information that's coming through, and yes, in a way, it's not really new information, but it's being integrated differently from a level that requires a different perspective, I guess, right? So it's like I'm constantly, like we said, right? Like it's the layers of the onions. I'm going deeper and deeper and understanding new aspects and seeing different parts in this layers of the onion. And so that's why I wanted to make this video, like I was saying. It's just to help you understand too that for a lot of us, we're going to be going through this. This is the continuing cycle of being human, right? Where it's learning something new constantly. And it's just about giving yourself as much grace as you can, as much compassion as you can, understanding that it's difficult, it's going to be uncomfortable wow when we're discovering this and how to apply what we need to our life so that we can live in more harmony, more grace, and more peace. And learning to be okay with people not liking us saying no or not being as available as maybe we once were. Um, about learning that sometimes we feel abandoned, but often that abandonment sometimes is how often we abandon ourselves, right? Because we gaslight ourselves so often, or, we keep saying, no, I'm not going to answer this phone call, or no, I'm not going to do this. And then you give in, right? And that's like another version of us abandoning ourselves. So it's understanding those things that, sometimes we're going to give in and then we're going to feel shitty for it. But that's okay because it's, again, another opportunity for us to integrate the experience, integrate the energies and what it presented and what it made us feel or didn't make us feel, right? Paying attention to how it felt in the body, right? And these are all opportunities to help us to connect more and more to our body. Because as much as we are here as souls in a human body having this human experience, that is what it's about, right? Like, sure, it's wonderful living in the ethers and experiencing that space. And sometimes it's nice to be there, but we are still here to be human. And that is so important. And it's for us not to lose sight of that It's about embodying the body, embodying the experience, this human journey. It's about awakening and remembering, right? So the awakening is not awakening into somebody new, it's remembering who you are and who you were always, right? And reestablishing that connection to God source, to God that was never gone, but we kept it separate because that's what we were taught for so long, that there was this separation, right? So it's all about unity. This is what's happening. We're all coming back into this unity consciousness within ourselves and with God. And um, again, it's just about integrating it all and embodying it all so that there is no longer that separation, and understanding that, you know, again, it's not a linear flow of feeling, and that it's okay to feel like you're going in circles, because really we're not. Um, and that every path, every path has certain markers that we're meant to connect to, that then springs off and creates more timelines and more opportunities. But I'm going to leave it there. Let me know how you've been feeling, and what you've been experiencing these last few months too, because as we were coming out of the snake into the horse and everything, right? Like, I don't know. I understand those things, and sometimes I I don't know. Sometimes to me too, it just feels like hype type of stuff, just to get, I don't know. But anyways, it's more about just opportunities for conversation. I think that's the most important part of any platform, is the opportunity for conversation, a safe space for conversation, so that, you know, the opportunity for actual listening, right? It's not listening with the intent to respond. It's about really listening, and just, and understanding that it's not about convincing or changing people. It's just an opportunity for conversation, an opportunity to be like, okay, I want to hear why you feel this way, or why you believe what you believe, right? And it's not about, I'm going to tell you because I want to change you and I want you to believe me, because that doesn't matter. It's just about, okay, cool. Like, I want to hear from you, right? Like, I want to know. So I feel like that's the importance of these places. It's giving everybody an opportunity to just at least share aspects of their versions, right? Without being assholes about it. I don't know. Surrounding you all in love. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being patient with me as I slowly come out of whatever this is, and that I will do my best to not be so silent. But again, I wanted an opportunity to kind of feel deeper into what was happening so that I would even know what to say. Because, and plus at that time, I was so tired. There was no way that I was going to be able to make a video. Um, yeah, and that's it. But again, as always, I appreciate you. I'm so grateful, that I have this opportunity to share, and that if somebody is interested in learning more about it and wants to connect, I'm here. All my information is in my bio. Um, and, yeah, we're here to support each other in this human experience with a little love, a little grace, and a little compassion. Again, till next time.